Our story today will be about a unique event, the complete disappearance from human history of a mysterious caste of medieval Scandinavian warriors who, if you believe the legends, could single-handedly defeat and put entire armies of enemies to flight. So why did they disappear? What was the reason for this? Atheists are unlikely to believe this, but the mighty Berserkers were destroyed by what is commonly called in Christianity a miracle of God. Although this miracle has nothing to do with religion, the coincidence is very striking, because it clearly could not have happened without the intervention of some higher powers. In our time, Berserkers are represented as warriors in animal skins who possessed incredible strength. They drank a special drink made from fly agaric mushrooms, which put them into a special combat trance, and used witchcraft before battle. These ancient northern warriors felt no pain and no fear, which terrified their enemies. Berserkers are first mentioned in Thorbjorn Hornklovi's saga, dedicated to the victory of King Harald Fairhair at the Battle of Hafrsfjord, around 872. The Berserkers, dressed in bear skins, roared, shook their swords, bit the edge of their shields in rage and rushed at their enemies. They were possessed and did not feel pain, even if they were struck by a spear. When the battle was won, the warriors fell exhausted and sank into a deep sleep. Another known mention of Berserkers dates back to the 13th century. Snorri Sturluson in the Ynglinga saga, part of the Earthly Circle sagas, tells of Odin's warriors, and his warriors rushed into battle without chain mail, raged like mad dogs or wolves, bit their shields, and were strong like bears or bulls. They killed people, and neither fire nor iron harmed them. Such warriors were called Berserkers. And in the 43rd chapter of Germania, the Roman writer Tacitus also mentions a special caste of warriors of the Germanic tribe of the Garii from the tribal union of the Lugii, who had all the signs of Berserkers, and this happened 800 years before the Battle of Hafrsfjord, surpassing in strength the tribes just listed and fierce by nature. They, with the help of all sorts of tricks and using the darkness, achieve that they seem even more wild. Their shields are black, their bodies are painted. For battles they choose pitch-dark nights, and with the gloomy appearance of their seemingly ghostly and sepulchral army instill such horror in their enemies that no one can bear this unprecedented and seemingly leading to the underworld spectacle. And in the 31st chapter of Germania, Tacitus also writes about the tribe of the Chatti. Having barely matured, they begin grow their hair and grow a beard and take a vow not to remove this covering on their head and face, which obliges them to valor, until they kill the enemy. And only over his corpse and the spoils taken from him do they uncover their faces, believing that at last they have paid in full for their birth and have become worthy of their fatherland and parents, but the cowardly and unwarlike remain in their ugliness to the end of their days. The bravest of them, moreover, wear an iron chain resembling shackles, which is considered shameful among this people until they are freed from it by killing an enemy. However, many Hattians like this attire so much that they live in it until their gray hairs, noticeable to their enemies and respected by their own. They are the ones who start all the battles. And in Book 7 of the Genesis of the Danes, Saxo Grammaticus also tells of the Svean Siwald, who had 7 sons who were so skilled in sorcery that often, suddenly seized by wild rage, they howled terribly, gnawed their shields with their teeth, swallowed hot coals and walked through any fire lit in front of them. And it was impossible to pacify their madness otherwise than either by tightly binding them or allowing them to arrange a terrible slaughter among people. Some of the Berserkers, receiving a rich salary or engaged in robberies, were temporarily able to acquire their own squad and ships. Thus, in the Saga of the Keeper of the Ring, it is said, there lived 2 brothers. One was called Arnhavdi, and the other, Hilder, great Vikings and troublemakers, who sometimes fell into a berserker rage. They fought everywhere on distant shores and islands, and money and the lives of men were their spoils. Each of them ruled his own ship. The word berserker itself, or possessed by rage, comes from ancient times, from the custom of northern people to get drunk on the fly agaric mushroom, or rather, one of the species of these fly agarics. Later, in the Middle Ages, the Normans called berserkers warriors possessed by rage in battle. They fought without chain mail, shield and helmet, in only linen shirts, and were so terrible that, according to legend, for example, 12 berserkers, the sons of King Canute, sailed on a separate ship, since the Normans themselves were afraid of them. And all these metamorphoses with people occurred thanks to a special decoction of fly agarics. Although modern researchers suggest that these could not have been fly agarics, but the plant black henbane. The Journal of Ethnopharmacology published a study according to which the effect of henbane on the human body is much more similar to berserk behavior than the effect of fly agarics. Despite the fact that in European folk medicine henbane was used as a painkiller, it is very toxic. The plant alkaloids atropine and scopolamine cause delirium, aggression, visual impairment, and dull pain in humans. The authors of the study believe that this is why the berserkers were dangerous even for their allies. Under the influence of henbane, they simply could not distinguish faces. While fly agaric causes delirium, hallucinations, and confusion, but not necessarily aggression. Perhaps henbane was added to the drink, but this fact is not mentioned anywhere in written sources. Only a drink made from fly agarics is mentioned. But all this is not so important, because then something inexplicable happened. Norway, and then gradually other Scandinavian countries, gradually adopted Christianity, starting around 1000 and completing this process by 1150. And after the adoption of Christianity in Scandinavia, any old pagan customs were banned. In particular, this affected warriors in animal skins. A law issued in Iceland in 1123 stated, "A berserker seen in a rage will be punished with 3 years of exile." And this was the last written mention of the existence of berserker warriors, after which they disappeared without a trace. Could these fierce, ageless medieval terminators really be afraid of some ordinary exile? No, everything turned out to be much more interesting. It seems that with the advent of Christianity in Scandinavia, those very fly agarics from which the berserkers brewed their nightmarish drink suddenly began to mutate. Here is what Elijah Brown, a Franciscan monk from the Swedish city of Stockholm, wrote about this in the 16th century. "Truly great is the power of the Lord, which many years ago eradicated the race of these fiends of hell, called berserkers, those who drank the devil's beer brewed from wild fly agarics, from which demons entered them and forced them to unbridled rage and great bloodshed. The Lord punished them by depriving the devil's mushrooms of the power of demons. Now it has become impossible to prepare that magical remedy for the fury of the berserkers from the fly agarics growing around in the forests and on the banks of the fjords." Another monk, a representative of the Jesuit order, Ignacy Korlinski, who lived in Denmark at the end of the 16th century, was even more specific. Here is what he wrote. "The poisonous mushrooms that grew everywhere right up to the great ice, from which the wild berserkers cooked the magical honey, with the arrival of Christ in our lands lost their devilish power and stopped turning people into demons. The magical honey became harmless. The demons no longer settled in the fly agarics, and with them the berserkers disappeared forever, leaving behind only a terrible memory of the past." Speaking in modern terms, it is very similar to the fact that the local Scandinavian fly agarics suddenly underwent strange mutations, partially losing their hallucinogenic properties. And whether the adoption of Christianity is the reason for this is also an interesting question. But this is already from the realm of esotericism and assumptions. The difference between paganism and Christianity is that pagans do not believe in God, but in what He created. And only God has power over His creations, including fly agarics. And what do you think about this, dear viewers? Write your assumptions in the comments. And see you on our channel.